About age 35, I was changing planes in O'Hare Airport one afternoon on a Friday afternoon. I ended up stopping right in the middle of traffic flow. People going around me, around the Hare Krishnas in their saffron robes, which dates this whole thing right there. Because sitting on bar stools, but they were all dressed like me, three-piece suit. They all had a hanging bag next to them. I had one over my shoulder. They all had a briefcase on the floor next to their bar stool. I had my Hartman 5-inch case. I was with it. And I looked over and I thought, man, they're all like me, but they're about 60 and I'm 35. And I'm standing there going, I don't know if I want to be 25 years from now, I want to be pounding down double scotches between flights on a Friday afternoon on the way home. Got on the plane, came home, and did what I do. I went to the library and I started reading about goal setting and life planning and values and contribution and meaning and purpose, and started putting some of those things in play, and it was working.
My name is Candace Fitzpatrick, founder of Core Clarity. Joining me today is Michele Metzler, one of our Core Clarity facilitators.
Thank you, Candace. Our guest's early career was in engineering and finance, but according to him, he has been in the AHA business since 1987. An AHA is a sudden shift in the way you see or think or feel about something. And that's when he realized he had a passion for coaching and the holistic development of others. Steve Straus, we are so glad to have you here. Welcome to Authority of One.
Well, thanks very much, ladies. I'm happy to be here. And Authority of One, I love that title. I love it. It evokes thought. You don't just let that run by. You go, oh, Authority of One. Yeah, where am I on Authority of One? Who am I on Authority of One? So good. 1987 aha moment was not the first aha moment. In fact, I had done no planning in my life. I had no game plan. I just got married, had a family early, started businesses, worked for others. I'm very fortunate in a variety of ways. I'm a quick thinker. I'm fairly well read. And so I had basically lived my life up until this aha moment I'll describe in a second, just shooting back. Here the world came and I responded, and sometimes it landed, sometimes it didn't, but I was always moving. And at about age 35, I was changing planes in O'Hare Airport one afternoon on a Friday afternoon. I'd been selling technology and software to banks and savings and loans throughout North America. And I was coming back from some East Coast place, changing planes to Chicago to fly home to Dallas on a Friday afternoon. And at that time, there were multiple lobbies at O'Hare, and one of them had a bar out. And maybe they all did, but this one had a bar. And I happened to glance over, and I ended up stopping right in the middle of traffic flow. People going around me, around the Hare Krishnas in their saffron robes, which dates this whole thing right there. Because sitting on bar stools were a string of 6, 8, 10 guys, I don't remember. But they were all dressed like me, three-piece suit. They all had a hanging bag next to them. I had one over my shoulder. They all had a briefcase on the floor next to their bar stool. I had my Hartman 5-inch case. I was with it. And I looked over and I thought, man, they're all like me, but they're about 60 and I'm 35. And I'm standing there going, I don't know if I want to be 25 years from now, I want to be pounding down double scotches between flights on a Friday afternoon on the way home. And I asked one of those great questions that we ask ourselves every once in a while. And this was, okay, big guy, what do you want to be doing when you're 60? And I've told this story many times, but this is completely accurate. The literal trickle of sweat down my back, because I was standing there, not immobilized, but frozen, going, I don't know what I want when I'm 60. got on the plane, came home, and did what I do. I went to the library and I started reading about goal setting and life planning and values and contribution and meaning and purpose, and started putting some of those things in play, and it was working. And that was January of 87, my first visit with him. And so 3 years later, I said, I think there's a pony under here. And I hung out my shingle. I was working with another guy, Paul Williams, who was doing what I was doing. We were making it up, and he was kind of out there getting paid for it before I was. I hung my shingle out, and I said, I think I can make a living doing this. And I nearly starved for 3.5 years. I did a lot of coaching of a lot of people, but we got in some serious and credit card kind of debt, very expensive debt. But another aha, and then I'll shut up and let y'all ask me questions on this, but to finish framing the start of this whole thing, hanging up my towel in the bathroom, my wife had come in and she said, look, we have no money. Every month we have more debt. The income is not equal to the outflow. And I just want to know, do you have a plan? And with my back to her, hanging up the towel, I vividly remember that. I said, look, sell the dog, rent out the kids, do whatever you got to do, because she did all the finances. My job was bring it in, throw it over my shoulder, and she took care of everything else. She was brilliant at it, Pam. And I said, do whatever you got to do. Give me another year. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. And I knew that solid. She said, okay, got it. Bless her heart. And it was a little over a year later that I ran into Thomas Leonard. And he didn't meet people individually, but he was living in Dallas at that time. I said, you're going to meet me. And I went in and visited with him where he was living. I told him my story, and we agreed I was a really good coach. And he had been coaching about the same length of time I had, 6.5 years at that point. He had an accounting CPA background. And he left the room and he came back in with 3-inch, 3-ring binders of everything he had been writing about. Because not only had he been coaching, he had been saying, what are we doing here? And he was writing it down. He was like Mozart. He was just channeling stuff. And he walked back in the room, and I turned away from looking at the beautiful view of downtown Dallas from this high rise. And I turned to him and I said, Thomas, there's one thing I haven't told you. He said, yeah. And I said, and I broke into tears. I said, I'm drowning financially. I don't have 2 dimes to rub together. And he just stood there and let me get over it. And and he said, okay, let's talk about that. And he started coaching me. And I paid attention. I went home that weekend. That was a Thursday, I think. And I read all of those 3-ring binders. And I said to Pam, another aha moment. I said, I got 2 choices here. I can throw away everything I think I know about coaching and start over and learn from Thomas. Or I can keep doing what I'm doing. And I said, I don't really have a choice. She said, no, you don't. What you're doing isn't working. I said, it's not working. Mm-hmm. And I think he's right, but boy, is it a different orientation. And she said, how are we going to pay for that? I said, I don't know. So I talked to him, and I paid him half each month, and we kept track of the other half until I was making money, and then I caught up with him. But I went cash positive in my life within 2 months. I was out of debt within 2 years. And Thomas's observation was, you're a good coach, maybe even a great coach, and you got all the pieces, but you haven't figured out how to make a business out of it. So he helped me do the business part of it. And it's been easy street, literally, ever since then. So multiple ahas, O'Hare being, I really call the first one. And there have been many others along the way, but there you go.